Sideshow presents Get Super with Joshy G. Featuring today's special guest, Bill Goldberg. It's time to get super.
Hey everyone, what's going on? I'm Joshy G, and I am very excited about today's episode of Get Super with Joshy G because I have my really good friend, my buddy, pretty much my brother. That's why I wore a baseball cap, and that's why I got tattoos, because we were getting so confused with when I'm walking down the street. They'd be like, "Oh, Goldberg." I'm like, no, not me. That's my brother Bill. But we have the one and only Bill Goldberg on the show. Bill, what is up, my friend? How are you doing? First and foremost, I miss you. It's been quite a while since I've seen you in person, but I hope you and the family are staying safe in these crazy times. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. You know, it's funny they mistake you for me because I've got a white beard and you don't. But I'm more like your dad than your brother. So
yeah, that is true.
Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, I was saying, brother, I didn't want to age you.
Grandfather.
No, not grandfather. Not everyone knows Bill Goldberg, obviously, from the world of professional wrestling, but did you know that he is an actor? He hosts many talk shows, and he is an avid collector. Obviously, this show is about collecting health and fitness, which we'll all get into about his collecting. I collect comic books and fun action figures and toys behind me. Bill has a specific thing that he loves to collect, but we'll get into that in a moment. First and foremost, Bill, for those that don't know, a little bit of a quick background. You were a football player back in the day. You dabbled in MMA training. How did that prepare you for the world of professional wrestling?
Oh, well, I never would have made the segue from football to wrestling if martial arts or mixed martial arts wasn't coming to the forefront, because that was how I could identify my character and still be able to look myself in the mirror and know that I was going out and being a professional wrestler. You know, I was emulating and copying things that guys were doing to break limbs and to smash skulls. So if I could blur the line a little bit from reality, then I thought the character would serve a very different purpose than many had in the past. And so, you know me, man. You trained with me many a time. We've sought out the only Muay Thai gym in Edmonton when we were out there with the movie. The funny thing is, we could do this podcast based upon the background between you and I, because nobody really knows it.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because people ask me, like, how do you know Bill? And it's an interesting story, to say the least. Growing up being a big professional wrestling fan, and I've told you this before, not such a big WCW fan, but you and I worked on a movie together, and a great movie called Looney Tunes Back in Action. And you played the heavy, if you want, the bodyguard to Steve Martin's character. And me being a professional wrestling fan, saw that the production not necessarily wasn't treating you with respect, but wasn't giving you updates, we'll call it that. And I was like, I'm going to take it upon myself to make sure that Mr. Bill Goldberg is updated when lunch is or when the next scene is. And that kind of sparked a friendship. But after kind of making that transition from wrestling into the world of movies, what was your position, in the sense, like, were there particular roles you were looking for, or that you just wanted to get into movies?
I never, the difference between me and The Rock, and I've always said this, and you have heard this many a time from my mouth, is that The Rock's an entertainer and I'm a competitor, right? So I don't, no offense to all the people that have been entertained by what I do, but I don't go out to provide that type of a show directly. I hope that my performance is entertaining through my competitiveness, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I know it's fictional and it's predetermined, but we all look at it and take it differently. For me, it's still a competition. So as far as segueing into movies and television and searching out specific roles, I think it's quite obvious that just about everything that I've played is a true depiction of me in one way or another. So it makes it much easier to portray that person who you live with 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm. And the great thing is no role I think was more specific of what you're talking about than your role in The Longest Yard. Which, being at your friend and at that time, a pseudo assistant, being able to watch you kind of relive your football days, it was fun to see you get into character and, like you said, to be competitive because I'm sure a lot of people don't know this, but going into The Longest Yard, they had you go through camp, right? Or they had a football style camp, and nobody took that more serious than you. What was that like when someone's like, "Hey, guess what? You're going to have to go through football camp for this movie," and your competitiveness kicks right in?
When as well as 90% of my fans, my first love is football. And when I put a helmet on, I don't care how old I am or how far removed I am from what I used to do. I think I can still do it, kind of like my wrestling boots. But to be able to go out there and to do what I love, 20 years removed, was an honor and a privilege, and something that I'll cherish my entire life. When I go back and talk to the University of Georgia, and those kids sit there and they look at me based upon the things that I've done throughout my career, I reiterate to them that the most important and the most fun that I ever had, the most important time in my life, was sitting in the seat that they're sitting in, playing football in college. Not a hell of a lot of responsibility at that time. You go out and have a good time. It was a job per se, but you still had the responsibility of obviously getting good grades. But it was the most fun time in my life, and people don't understand that to be able to go back and relive that in one way, shape, or form. I mean, it was an honor and a privilege that not many humans get.
And especially in a movie like Longest Yard, which again is a remake of a classic Burt Reynolds movie, one of your favorite movies growing up. You get to be around your hero, Burt Reynolds. You get to be around, comedic geniuses like Adam Sandler, like, Joey Diaz. And then you have these competitive other, both professional wrestlers and MMA fighters, both Kevin Nash, Steve Austin, the wrestlers, and then Bob Sapp, MMA guys. There is just, as you would say, a cavalcade of competitiveness around. Everybody's trying to make everyone better on that movie set. And
testosterone, there was no lack of testosterone floating around that set.
Exactly. But the great thing about your performance in that is, if you look, there is no Goldberg stunt double. I remember they had a guy come out. His name was Hardy. Great dude. And you were like, no, that's okay. I will basically do my own stunts. There is no way I'm going to allow you to smash this guy. I want to do it myself. What was your highlight of working on that movie, besides, of course, being able to put the football pads on?
My helmet flew off and the camera kept rolling. And I was supposed to grab the quarterback and pick him up by his face mask and headbutt him. And I went on and I continued the scene with no helmet on, and I dropped the kid. That was my favorite part of the movie.
and both very Goldberg-esque and very Joey Battle-esque. Joey Battle obviously was the character that he played, for those that don't know. But again, just another like sprinkle of Goldberg-esque on that particular character, which, again, for those that know you, watch that and you're like, oh, that's Bill 100%,
Yeah, that's, and Roman and other people are like, hey, this headbutt in the door before the thing, that's pretty stupid. People don't understand that's part of my deal, man. You know that. I gotta, when the light turns on, when I'm asked to do that character, when I'm asked to be Goldberg, I have to get in the zone, right? And people have different ways of motivating themselves.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a superhero trait. I mean, it's one of the things and one of the qualities that make you kind of larger than life. And I think that that's why so many people are gravitated towards you, both as a person and as a character, is that people look up to that intense machine and want to emulate that. You know what I mean?
As ridiculous as it is, yeah. I mean, it's not normal. I mean, so yeah, I can see how it would be kind of freakish, kind of like Dilip eating 2 whole chickens every day at lunch.
Yeah. But again, going back to like, popular wrestlers, you got Austin. People did not like the fact that, their boss was telling them what to do. And so they like that kind of FU mentality. And same thing with you, man. People love the fact that you would go in there, smash a dude within 30 seconds or so, and then leave. And people were just like, what happened? And like, again, as a wrestling fan and even a sports entertainment fan, or even just a sports fanatic, watching that is really cool, whether you want to call it fake or predetermined. It was such a cool thing to happen at such a height or such a popular time in pro wrestling, you know. And
I was in the right place at the right time with the right character, you know, the less is more mentality. And if it wasn't for Hogan and everybody else in the business, you know, there still wouldn't be a Goldberg. So I'm appreciative of being in the right place at the right time. But there is a work ethic behind it all. And if anybody knows it, it's you. I mean, you know, you saw me on the movie, you see me many a time, and you know, I hope that spurred a little bit of ethic in you too, because you had it back in the day. You know, all we did was work our asses off. That's it.
Well, that's what I always, sometimes I'll scream at a TV or a YouTube clip when someone's like, oh, you know, Goldberg's lazy. I'm like, well, that is not the case, because I have been a part of many workouts with Goldberg, or he will take things very, very seriously. He is the reverse of lazy. And one particular role that I know you were not lazy about, and you took very, very seriously, was the role of the one and only superhero himself, Santa Claus, in Santa's Sleigh. SLAY, by the way, for those of you that have not seen this cult classic. Look, I'm not saying it because you're on the show. It is fantastic. And it was my friend David who directed the movie, and you play Santa Claus, a killer Santa Claus. And look, we had fun filming the movie, but I think you had more fun playing Santa Claus.
100%. But I had the most fun when you introduced me to my future wife.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Wanda Goldberg, Wanda Farrington at the time was a stunt woman on the movie. And you were, you know, it's very hard to get you to not say a lot of things, or for you to be flabbergasted in a way. And
well, here's the funny part. I'll set it up, and I don't know what your podcast is rated, but I'll keep it clean. We had a room of 49 female entertainers at the time, and not one of them had a stitch of clothing on, except for the number 50, who would happen to be a stunt woman who had a blue robe on sitting in the corner. And I asked you quite nicely to go over and see what was going on with that girl. Why she got her robe on, right? That's that, and the rest is history.
And now you have a family. You have a son who is, I just saw on a recent documentary, is a giant. I remember watching him in a carriage while our friend was getting married, and now he's gigantic. He is like a mini version of you. What is that like to have a mini version of yourself going into football, doing baseball? I mean, he is quite the athlete.
I couldn't be any more proud, you know. I mean, with the mentality and the genes of myself and my beautiful wife, who, as you mentioned, is a stunt woman. I mean, he's not going to be afraid of anything.
Yeah.
He's extremely lucky. He works his ass off. I mean, I'll give you an example of his day. This morning, I dropped him off at 6:30 at school. He worked out before school, goes to school. At the end of school, his sixth period, they have full pads practice. And then I'll pick him up from that practice, and we go to a facility called D1 where he'll train for an hour and a half. So I have never had to push this kid. My mentality and my strategy was I kept him away from weights until a year and a half ago. 14 years old, when we moved here to Texas, was the first time I let him touch the weights, and he couldn't stand me because he was behind everybody. Because nowadays everybody likes to start early. Well, there's no reason to start early. Let your mentality catch up with your physical aspect. So once he understood that when he put a football helmet on, he was going to get hit by every direction, then I said, you know what, it's time to arm you. So, I mean, the kid's 5'11 and a half, 185 pounds. He can do 20 pull-ups. I mean, he's going to be a monster. That's all I got to say. Watch out for this kid.
Now, are you excited for his potential in the sense that you want to see him grow as a football player, or is there talks of him kind of taking over the mantle, if you will, of Goldberg in the professional wrestling ring?
No, he is a baseball player, actually, and now he's found the love for football. So he'll be hopefully on the varsity as a freshman this year. He's already, you know, the catcher for the number 1 JV team, so he'll segue up to varsity next year. But to be perfectly honest, and I had the conversation with him the other day, and I put a lot of pressure on him in that I want him to be perfect. In that I just want him to try as hard as he can try and use what he has developed and, well, apply what he's developed. And the the misconception that he has, and I think that other people have, is that I want him to play so badly because I want him to succeed. I just want him to feel what it's like to be a part of a team and to go through what I went through as a football player, being able to lean on the guys next to you because you bleed with them, you sweat with them, you go to war with them. And the only thing that I can compare to that is being in the military. So it's the experience I want him to go through. And obviously I want him to be the best that he could be, but as long as he gives 100% and he doesn't give up in that experience, I think that, the sky's the limit.
That's a great attitude to have, especially not just to your son, but to people in general. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the show, is to kind of encourage folks, whether they have never worked out in their life to people that work out all the time, is to doing some sort of physical activity, not just sitting on your couch and watching TV, watching movies or reading comic books, but to actually go out and do something that's physical. What is your advice to people that may have never picked up a weight and want to start working out, but maybe they're too intimidated to step foot into a gym or to download an app? What would your advice be to people who have never worked out before but want to make that change? They want to make that leap into bettering themselves and bettering their entire lifestyle.
Well, the best part about being able to change your physical stature is that you have complete control over it, right? When you make a decision to get off your ass and really go do something, and obviously you have to do it properly, you have to have the right direction, you have to have the right coaching, but it's nobody can force you to do it. You have to want to do it. And once you feel what it's like to go through a workout and feel the euphoria that you get from it, it's addicting. It truly is. And I think that's quite funny that anybody on the planet would call me lazy, because at 54 years old, I work out every night around 10 o'clock by myself, for about an hour and a half. And it's what I do. I'm addicted to it. And because if I don't do it, I feel like a lazy piece of trash. And it's a feeling that, I couldn't imagine not working out. I really couldn't. I mean, it messes with you mentally, obviously physically. And it's especially during COVID, really no one has an excuse. I'll be honest with you. You see Braun Strowman talking about, him being worried about his physical stature and about him being picked on. I don't like working out in front of people. Right? Because I used to be 300 pounds with veins on my traps. And if I can't be that guy anymore, I'm self-conscious about it. So this myth about people not wanting to work out because they don't want to do it in front of somebody, I do it in my own garage. Mm-hmm. So there is no excuse, period, end of story. Watch CT Fletcher, right? You and I are big fans of CT. It's all about you getting off your ass and making the decision. Because once you get off the ass and open up that door or pick up that weight or pick up that jump rope, it's all over. And my adage also, and that this is true, is that if you're going to do something, be the best at it. Don't be a sheep. Be a leader, right? Be better than anybody else at it. But you have to be realistic at the same time. Set realistic goals. But it doesn't happen by osmosis. You have to get off your butt and do it yourself.
Yeah, and that's great to hear, especially coming from somebody who, again, a lot of people admire and look up to. That's one of the main reasons. Seth and I started Dead Boys Fitness, and that's why we partnered up with Sideshow to create this show for people that are outside of the wrestling world, that are more in the pop culture, comic book, superhero world, that sit at home and may not be motivated to go and work out. And so
here's a good one for you. You mentioned pop culture, you mentioned video games. When Gage was 5 years old, he got addicted to this video game craze. Well, do you remember what I made him start doing? This thing called the 100.
No, but please refresh my memory, because I'm very excited to hear about this.
For 40 minutes on the video game, he had to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 jumping jacks. That's where it started, right? Then it went to 300, where he was actually doing 300 push-ups, 300 sit-ups, and then 300 dips before he could go do his video games.
Could he break it up however he wanted, or do you have to do it in succession?
Oh, he had to do it in succession, 100%. But the I would vary the exercises completely, because it got mundane after a while. 300 jumping. Come on, do something else. So it was wall stands or whatever it was. But Obviously now I don't make him do that because he works out twice a day, 3 times a day as it is. So, but it was a motivating factor, and he got completely addicted to it. You know, this kid is just turned 15. He had 8 kids over Saturday night, and Wanda bought all these drinks and sodas and stuff with, you know, that normal people drink, because we don't drink stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a bag of Skittles here, and when everybody left yesterday, Gage walks over to me and he goes, "God, I can't believe how bad all my friends eat. This bag of Skittles was full when they got here, and now it's almost empty." I'm like, "How old is this kid? Who is this?" So it's just pounded it in, and then it becomes a way of life.
For those of you that are watching, maybe not start with 300 push-ups, 300 sit-ups, and 300.
No, you start with whatever's realistic that you can attain, right?
Yeah.
And then you build from there. That's it.
Let's have them start with 50. 50 sounds good.
50 is good for me.
Now, I know you're an avid collector, kind of segueing into collecting. I know you're an avid collector of classic cars, right? Obviously, I have comic books and stuff behind me. You have a ton of classic cars. And without getting into each and every one of them, which one is your favorite? I know what it is, but the audience doesn't know. Which one is your absolute favorite?
It's a 1970 Boss 429 Mustang called the Lawman. It's my favorite because it was campaigned over in Vietnam during the war. And a corporate lawyer for Chrysler came up with an idea that he was tired of the servicemen and women coming back, and for $3,500 they could get a 400 horsepower car, and most of them ended up wrapping them around trees and killing themselves. So he took a group of cars over to Vietnam. The car that I have is one of the surviving cars from that tour. It's the only Boss 429 in the world that's an automatic, and I just got done with a 2.5-year restoration on it. And you know, it says United States Performance Team on the side, and it's got the flag. It's red, white, and blue. And I mean, it's as historic as you're going to get. And to me, it means a lot for the servicemen and women who have fought to protect our freedom throughout the years prior, and you know what's going on now and in the future. And so I try to do everything I can for the military and any first responder. And so it really hits home. And I put the car in Gage's name, and hopefully we'll never get rid of it. And
the most important thing, it's one of one, right? Because there was 2. One of them got smashed, correct?
There was 2. One got smashed on the USS Coral Sea by a cargo container, and then they dumped it, and I got the only one left.
Wow, look at that. So for any of you that are watching, they want it, sorry, ain't gonna get it. Or if you do want it, you're gonna have to go through a lot to get it, including a giant man.
A lot, or a lot of zeros.
Now, you just recently returned back into the world of professional wrestling. How was that return mentally for you? Did you have to get back into superhero mode? Did you have to get back? Because I know there's a lot of people that return for obvious reasons. Of course, there's money. Of course, they miss the spotlight, but you have a very particular reason on why you come back. And I think it's really, really cool is that you like to do it for the kids. You like to do it, obviously, at one point when Gage was a little bit smaller, you wanted him to see you perform live in the ring. But I've heard you say this over and over again. You like being a real life superhero to these kids that look up to you. And I think that that's such a cool motto or a cool mantra to live up to. Was your return partially that, or did you also want to prove to yourself that you still could do it?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. At 54 years old, I mean, there's nobody else in my situation doing what I'm doing. I like to say that, you're only as old as you feel. It's not a number. There's a lot of things I'm doing it for. I mean, obviously for my family, obviously to set an example for my son that, hard work pays off and you can continue to do something past the normal date, based upon who you actually are. So I don't want to get pigeonholed in any way, shape, or form. It's tough, and quite obviously, the 3 or 4 kids that still look up to me, I'd like to make them happy too.
3 or 4 kids,
and there's a different generation, and though I'm not the same Goldberg as I was to prior generations, I still believe that I have something to offer. And how is it preparing for these matches? Well, each and every one that I've come back for, I've had a very limited number of weeks to get ready for them. So it's been very difficult for me, but I've changed my thought process and my training process now, and I'm staying in pretty good shape. I'm going to stay in pretty good shape throughout the year. Then when I get the phone call and it's only 4 weeks, then I'm ahead of the game. So I have really no one to blame but myself, because you can get kind of complacent out here on 220 acres in the middle of nowhere in Texas. And my garage is not completed yet by any stretch of imagination. My gym is not completed. Like I said, I've got 11 pieces of equipment in a makeshift gym in my garage right now. But and this is a detached 2-car garage, not my garage like you're used to seeing. So we all do what we can with what we're dealt. So COVID was really strange, obviously, for a lot of people, but all things considered, I'm going to be the last human on the planet to complain, because as I said, I got 200 acres to roam around out here.
Yeah. And
my life is kind of predicated on quarantining anyway. So it really didn't change much for me. Although, obviously getting on a plane and flying in with a mask on to wrestle, and then just turn around and shuttle them straight back to the house. It was a very weird experience wrestling in front of no crowd. So
yeah,
I'm glad that's over with. And I'm ecstatic for the people, because I went to the UFC this last weekend, and man, they were soaking it up. They just absolutely loved it. It's like the first UFC they ever saw. And anything and everything that they could cheer for, that was the case, because people they're clamoring to get out now.
Is
there
any
live event?
Yeah. Is there anybody that, if you were to return to wrestle, is there anybody that you'd really want to work with?
Man, there are a lot of guys that are so talented now. It's crazy. There's not just 1 or 2 people anymore. I mean, your buddy Cesario is on a roll, and it's great to finally see him getting some damn credit. Roman obviously is in my sights at some point. It would have been great to wrestle these guys 20 years ago, but they were in a crib, so it would have been kind of a disadvantage for them. But Big E, you've read about me talking about Big E. He was in my autograph line one time, right? And I'll never forget that. And now he's doing what he's doing, as successful as anybody out there. I need a little piece of McIntyre again. Obviously, Braun beat me. I need some of him. Lashley's out there. I'd love to get my hands on him. So I mean, there's a plethora of people, and Randy Orton. I mean, Randy and I had some goes back in the day, and he's one of the best out there. And I'd be honored to share the squared circle with a lot of those people.
That's awesome. You got action figures. You were in movies. You were an author. You had a book. You're on the cover of comic books. I mean, is there anything that you are looking forward to that you have not conquered yet?
You know what, man? I've tried a lot of things. I've dabbled in a lot of things. I'm decent at a lot of things. I'm not great at any of them, but I want to concentrate on being a good dad and being a good husband the rest of my life. There are a lot of things that I set my sights on, and I work my ass off to be, and I think those might be the hardest ones I've ever tried. So I think there's a lot more effort put into those, but man, I'm in a very good place in my life. I really am. It's just wonderful to be out here, and it's a crazy world, man. So it's good to be able to take a breath and try to prioritize things and look at things realistically with logic, and just go about my day. So I'm a simplistic person, like I always have been.
Well, that I appreciate. I know your time is limited, so I'm going to let you go. But before I let you go, I always ask one question. I ask it to every single person, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot. I'm going to ask it to you. If you, Bill, could book a pop culture WrestleMania main event, it literally could be anything. It could be you versus Arnold versus Stallone versus Seagal in a fatal 4-way match. It could be you and Wanda versus The Miz and his wife in a steel cage. It doesn't even have to involve you. It could be the Hulk versus Superman in a no holds barred match. It could be anything. What would your pop culture WrestleMania main event be, and why?
My main event would be a tag match, right?
Uh-huh.
With me and you
This is the first time I've ever been involved. All right.
Against whoever you wanted to wrestle.
Oh.
Because I know what the wrestling business means to you.
Oh.
So I'd be your partner for that one, and we'd kill anybody and everybody we went up against. And just like I tell the story, and this is completely true, about, you know, the coolest night of my life in the wrestling ring was sitting in the corner after I beat Hogan and watching the Atlanta Falcons come out and save me when the NWO jumped me. And I sat in the corner and I was looking, and I'm like, you know what? Those guys, they want to be me right now. I've always wanted to be them, and now they want to be me. It's kind of like poetic justice. I would sit in the corner and watch you go to work and think the same type of thing. Not that you'd want to be me, but I don't think that there's anything in the world that you'd rather do than something like that. So to be able to provide that for you would be my ultimate WrestleMania.
Hell of a Mania moment. But I always said I'm a way better manager than I would ever be a wrestler. So if you ever go back and need like a Bobby Heenan or someone that's gonna like trip the other guy or throw salt in their face, I'm your guy, buddy. Just saying, I'm your guy.
You're my guy, 100%.
Well, dude, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Please follow Bill on social media if you don't already, whether it be Twitter or Instagram. We got our fingers crossed for a Goldberg versus Cesaro match or Roman Reigns match. And I know I got my fingers and my toes crossed for Santa Slay 2. If you haven't seen Santa Slay 1, let's just pray to whoever you want to pray to that Santa Slay 2 becomes a reality, because I would love nothing more than to see you put the Santa hat and or beard back on one more time.
I did. I did it for Christmas here and yeah, where I live. And for these kids that have never seen it before, I scared the shit out of a bunch of them. Pardon my French. But we'll do it again. I'd love to, man. It was an honor being on your show, Josh. I'm ecstatic for your success, dude. And I love you to death.
Well, I love you too, buddy. And thank you so much. And we'll be back in just a moment. Sideshow Collectibles. What's up? It's Joshy G and the lovely Jen Houston for yet another fun Get Super with Joshy G workout. 100 air squats. That's it. Sounds reasonable. Sounds easy enough, but guess what? Every minute on the minute, you are going to complete 4. That's right, 4 no push-up burpees. So it's going to start with 4 no push-up burpees. Then you're going to go right into chipping away at 100 air squats. But remember, every minute on the minute, you got to complete those 4. Jen Houston, are you ready?
Ready.
Let's do this bad boy in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. All right, so we're going to start this bad boy off with the 4 no push-up burpees, as Jen is demonstrating right now. Once those are done, she's going to go right into 100 air squats. Now remember, the time is ticking. So bam, there she goes, right into it, 100 air squats. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, it is the top of the minute. 3, 2, 1. That means you got to stop and do 4 no push-up burpees every minute on the minute until you hit 100 air squats. Can you do it? And in fact, how fast can you do it? Jen, keep chipping away. This workout has virtual no rest. It is very difficult, very difficult. So again, if you can't squat all the way to depth, try to squat to a target. So a bench or as low as you can. All right, or a chair. Good job, Jen.
Thanks.
It is tough. How fast can you get through 100 burpees with 4 no push-up burpees every minute on the minute? We want to hear from you. We want to find out how fast it took you guys. All righty? Until then, don't forget to let your geek side show, and we will see you guys real soon. Did you enjoy that video? Be sure to subscribe by hitting the S icon on your screen and click the bell icon to be notified whenever a new video is posted. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to let your geek side show.